Bringing in the man himself. I got a lot of questions about this guy yesterday at the game. A lot of fans of this guy right here, and they were talking about him at the game. That is the one and only Clay Fink. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for basketball season. You guys got it early yesterday, so I had to wait. UK plays tonight, FSU plays, so that should be fun. Both teams won this past weekend. Happy for Stoops, happy for Norvell. Obviously, neither are in probably great situations right now, but it's always good to see those guys get wins. They're both good guys, so I'm feeling good.
Good to hear you. Good to hear that perspective after a couple weeks ago, Clay. Because we got you right when the news had dropped, so it was a little hot at that point.
Yeah.
So no, it's gonna. By the way, the guy from Kansas, what's his name? The guard. I had not seen him play. I'd heard about him. That guy looks amazing.
Yes, Darren, right? What's with a D? Peterson.
Darren. Yeah,
Darren.
that guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
sick man.
I like to keep an eye on the NBA. Kind of like how we do a group chat sports here on football side. Maybe we'll do some basketball as that goes on. That's up. If you guys want that, let us know in the chat. But I like to look at the NBA guys and kind of see early, like, hey, what are they working with? That guy looks to me every bit of top one, top two type pick. I know the kid from Gonzaga's gotten a lot of hype. Obviously, Boozer, we know him well here in Miami. But man, I had not heard about him until more recently, as far as being that top three type pick, just because I don't follow it as close on the recruiting side. That guy is unreal. He might be like, when it's all said and done, like one of those guys that is not generational is not the word I'm going to use. It's not generational is like Wembanyama, but like, the best number one pick out of college in a while.
I think he could be like Anthony Edwards level, which is darn good.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of like, as far as I know, I don't think he came out of nowhere. I'm sure he was always pretty highly ranked, but for the most part, it was Boozer and Dybonsa kind of battling for that number one spot. And Dybonsa, he gets like $8 million to go play for BYU. So I'm sure he's going to put up some big numbers there. But this Darren Peterson, like in the composite, he ended up finishing second. I think, 247 had him ranked over Dybonsa in their final rankings. So like, I really didn't hear as much about him, but man, he looks really, really good.
Miami gets to play him in a few weeks here at the tournament in Orlando, so that should be interesting.
There you go.
So let's get into some highly ranked football players, and these are guys that high school ranking was extremely high. The college production, not bad in the case of one of these guys we're going to talk about, but certainly not up to the level of the talent, and that's not maybe his fault. And these are the Auburn Blue Chips, right? So let's start with Coleman here. Cam Coleman, you talk about that wide receiver class a couple of years ago. It was Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams after the reclass, Coleman. These were guys right there at the top of what was perceived to be, almost a generational wide receiver class. And he's somebody that with Hugh Freeze, maybe on the outs, you could be talking about record-breaking portal numbers here.
D, bring that video full screen.
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd put it down. I think he could be the highest paid non-quarterback, and we'll see how the revenue sharing and whatnot kicks into that. But I don't know who that would be right now. Probably like someone Texas Tech paid. But I think he could be the highest paid non-quarterback of the NIL era.
I would guess Jeremiah Smith is getting a pretty nice number up there.
Free agent. Let's say.
I guess free agent. Yeah. Open market bidding war. It could get pretty ridiculous. I think the production's been good. I think it was better last year, but man, this poor guy. He chose to go to Auburn, but he's had just terrible quarterback play in his 2 years there. I think he's like unbelievably special. I've kind of always been in the camp that I thought he was the best freshman receiver in the state last year over Ryan Williams. Just more consistent despite a worse situation. And he's just like what it looks like. I think I've seen a lot of people say that him and Jeremiah Smith are like Julio and AJ Green. And I could definitely see that. I could definitely see the AJ Green comp with Cam Coleman.
Yeah, Ryan Williams was supposed to be the other guy. And he still is pretty special, but I do think when you look at these two, and Pete, I want to get your thoughts on Coleman, the physical size of Coleman, like the strength aspect, I think separates him a little bit from Ryan Williams, who we've seen the durability and just the ability to be consistent take a step back here in year two. Whereas Coleman, it seems like he's not a perfect player, but the quarterback aspect is really the story with him.
Yeah, and I think for me, D, it's you talk about the physical nature, but how he's getting in and out of his breaks. We talk about these bigger receivers, so to speak, right? Because listen, I think today's game of football, there's so much put on creating separation at that spot, and that's what the NFL has really started to value more than anything, right? Because contested catches are great, but those are not high percentage throws for quarterbacks, and that's not what these offenses are looking for. So it's one thing to say he's a bigger guy who plays with physicality, but it's the changing of speeds. It's you see the vertical threat that he is. Again, the separation that he's created. That's just an easy throw, easy catch. Like that's nothing else than him just running right by the corner, right? And you see it there, yards after catch ability as well. It's that ability. Oh, God, stop it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's from Phoenix City, Alabama, I believe is where he's from. So would he leave Auburn after choosing them kind of on the hometown base? I'm sure he got paid pretty good too. That'd be something to watch, especially if they hire somebody. But if you're him, you got to worry about who's going to get you the ball. And, Auburn brought in really 3 quarterbacks this past offseason in terms of portal and high school with what they did with Jackson Arnold and then
Ashton,
with Ashton Daniels, the dual threat, and then you talk about Deuce Knight, who we're talking here a second out of high school. None of those guys right now, to me, projects as an elite passer next year. I think all 3 would you'd say dual threats. Deuce Knight, we're talking about in a second, who I love, potential to be a passer, but it's not like
I'm going to just start rolling the highlights. They're like 8 minutes, so we can get to them in a second, but I'm going to just start rolling them.
Yeah, so Ashton Daniels. I always mix him up with Robbie Ashford from Wake Forest. Those dual threat ashes get me confused. But this guy right here, man, I mean, I am shocked, and I think part of the reason, and Fink, I want to get your thoughts on Deuce Knight. I think part of the reason why we're not seeing Deuce Knight more in games is because you have dual threat quarterbacks, right? With Ashton, with Jackson Arnold. So, like, it's not a situation where you have a pocket guy and then you bring in Deuce Knight for packages because you're the starting quarterback who can also run. You want those opportunities. So maybe that's limited his ability. But I thought with a guy like this, who's state champion long jumper, great basketball player, I saw him in the – let me get those highlights back up because those were great. I saw him in the Mississippi All-Star game, and this guy was absolutely unreal running the ball. He's got a great arm, not the most polished passer, super smart kid. I think he's like one of these like 4.0 type of dudes who's obviously Notre Dame had a huge factor in his recruitment because of that academic side that he brought. So a lot to like with this dude, and I think he could be really, really special if polished. I don't know, where are you at on Deuce Knight?
Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty good guess on why we're not seeing him. Just, none of these guys, as we said, are super polished passers at this stage. But like you said, this isn't like, we're starting DJU, who's got concrete in his cleats back there. Let's go to literally anybody else. Like, all 3 of those guys can move. Can any of them move maybe quite like Deuce Knight? Probably not. But they also have more experience at the college level. They probably are more polished passers at this stage. And you just have to get some sort of stability in the passing game with those weapons. And now you have Connor Lew out, who I originally had on here, but I think ultimately, unless there's another high-profile team with a flight school, he's probably sticking at Auburn after tearing his ACL. But yeah, they're missing their starting center. You need stability in the passing game, and maybe they will just throw Deuce out there to see what he has regardless because he's such an important piece for them to retain. But I think that's probably a pretty good guess as to why we're not seeing him. Just you have other guys who've seen action in real games at this level. But I mean, it's hard not to get super excited about him. He's not like an undersized guy either. He's 6'4", 217. He can still add definitely a lot of weight to his frame. He's pretty lanky right now, but I mean, just a completely insane athlete. You see it in a lot of these clips. And yeah, man, like on the freaks list for 247, he's just what it looks like from an athletic standpoint. And really the arm strength, I think, is pretty impressive as well.
I don't understand how we can say he's not polished, but I think, man, you land a top 5 quarterback in today's era, unless it's some situation where you have the guy, you're you're a program that has like a solidified guy there. If you're bringing in a top 5 quarterback, I think you need to have a plan to utilize him. I don't know that it makes much sense. You're investing so much money in it. You really, I don't think, should spend that money if you don't have a plan to utilize him, because you're running the risk of losing him, which obviously they've done now. If he was playing right now, or if he had been in the mix, or you'd been able to see something, then you probably have a chance to keep him if the new coach is a guy that you, and I'm not saying they don't have a chance to keep him. I don't know this situation in particular, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. You have a guy with this sort of ability. We can question the readiness of what it is, but at this position, I think there needed to be a plan to get him in the game, man.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right. And at this point, what are you playing for? With your head coach is gone, what are you playing for? It's youth movement. I'm sure every time in this situation, that's what the fans are clamoring for. Obviously, quarterback's been a position of problem for Auburn. So, yeah, man, you have, like you said, you have a top 5 quarterback, 5-star recruit. You can say they didn't plan to use him going into the year. That's fair. I'm sure they paid a good amount of money to Jackson Arnold to bring him in. But with how things have developed, you had to expect that if this did happen, you're going to lean on your 5-star freshman and retain him.
Yeah, we talked about this class, Pete and I, for a while, because I thought this was an outstanding quarterback class last year out of high school in terms of just guys that are big, a lot of basketball players in last year's quarterback class, just big guys who could run, who were highly productive in high school, who seemed to have good intangibles, big arms. So I thought the upper end talent in this last year's quarterback class, you don't really know until they play, but just on paper was outstanding. And then you look at some of the guys poised to play, right? So let's say you're Tavian St. Clair in Ohio State. Julian Sain's going to start at least for another year. I don't think Julian Sain's the kind of guy that's just running to the pros, given his frame, although he's having an incredible year. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but certainly next year he's not going to be gone because he's not eligible. Ty Simpson, somebody I would recommend staying in college just to get more reps. Maybe he goes pro because he thinks there's a better opportunity. I think, again, he needs the reps, but if he does stay another year, now Keelan Russell is not playing. We talked about Deuce Knight potentially transferring due to coaching changes. There's other coaching changes that you could see as the carousel continues. Look at a Matt Zollers in Missouri. If Drinkwitz goes to Florida, does he follow him? Is Lagway's there, right? Is he stay? If Bo Perbula's there. So I'm just thinking about guys in that class, and I'm leaving a lot out. You could see these guys come available, and are they going to be the next Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix, or I guess probably Dante Moore, maybe a better example of somebody who's a blue chip player who transfers and then lives up to their recruiting ranking, but on a different team.
Yeah, I think another one maybe to think about is Bryce Baker. It seems like they probably won't fire Belichick, just especially with all these recruits he keeps getting. But that's a guy who was he was the number 86 recruit, QB8, big frame. I don't think he's played this year. I could be wrong, but so that's definitely one I think of. Matt Zollers is definitely a good point, if Drink leaves. So it could be interesting. And then you also have the guys who are in year 2, who maybe haven't played either. So, yeah.
All right, so let's switch gears here. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we're talking about a freshman here in Deuce Knight, but someone that you want to get to here, Clay, Caleb Hawkins. Talk about a good size on a back here from North Texas. And we are going to talk about his athletic background here as we normally do, man. So what do you see in Caleb Hawkins?
Yeah, so this is a guy who's a true freshman running back for North Texas, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's from Shawnee, Oklahoma, and he played basketball, did long and high jumps and track. As a senior, 221 touches, 2,000 total yards, 31 total touchdowns, 90 tackles, 4 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles. It's pretty good. He wasn't even a top 2,000 recruit in the 2025 class. And at least according to his recruiting profile, his only other offers were Central Oklahoma and Emporia State. I don't know what that second one is. But currently, he's got a 91.3 rushing grade this year, and that's the highest in the FBS. Jeremiah Love, who is widely considered as the best back in the country, and he probably is, is second. So just to like emphasize, this guy is a freshman who's not only performing, he's performing at one of the highest levels in the country. It reminds me a lot of Ahmad Hardy's production last year. I think there's probably a guy that we'll see potentially enter the portal. Obviously, North Texas offered him when he didn't get any other interest, but 1,000 total yards, 14 touchdowns in 8 games so far this year. That's going to warrant some attention. And this is a guy who he's got speed, he's got contact balance, he's got vision. He's just a really complete back.
Yeah, you think of some of the G5 guys that jumped last year, Ahmad Hardy being the high-end success story. You also had like a guy like Mekhi Hughes who didn't work out. And so which one is this guy going to be? And I think he's much more closer to Hardy. When I saw the numbers before watching the kid play, I'm like, all right, well, North Texas, maybe he's just a good college back that's just having some success in a pretty wide open system. Then you watch him play and you're like, okay. And then you look into his background, you watch these high school highlights. And this is a guy that he just fell through the cracks because on paper, the production's ridiculous on offense and the highlights are ridiculous. He plays defense. How much have we talked about guys who go both ways as a big indicator, especially when they're hitting, they're making interceptions, doing all the things this guy does. He's sick. He's got plenty of length. He's actually a pretty tall running back and it has a little bit of upright style, long stride. He's going to be easily over 200 if he's not already. But then 22 plus in the long jump. I watched his basketball highlights. He's a good basketball player. He's returning punts. It's the athletic profile of a guy that's not just going to be, I think, successful in Power 4, but I think you're going to be talking about as a draft pick down the road because length, size, speed, like explosiveness with the long jump, the coordination, but with the basketball and what he does with the ball in the air on defense. There you see him go laterally. He's tough. He breaks tackles. I mean, this guy could be like a top of the class type running back. I think this is not a North Texas just nice G5 player that's producing. I think this is a diamond in the rough.
And he looked a little slow to me when I was, first started watching, but he just continues to, pull away from guys in the open field. I don't know that his first initial burst is the craziest thing I've ever seen, but once he gets going downhill, he's moving, man.
And it takes him a little second to get up to that speed, but I would say he's got a pretty good top speed, but it's faster than quick, I guess.
And 22 plus long jump, that is explosive. You cannot jump 22 plus especially I think it was like a sophomore, unless you have some juice, like that suddenness to him. So, you see it right there. I think it's just because he's a longer guy, it kind of looks different, but yeah, I am blown away by this guy. In a year where there's really, who would you say are the top running backs right now in the country that are really blowing your mind as far as man, this guy's going to play in the pros and be a high pick? I think this is the guy. Maybe you talk about Hardy certainly is having a good year. I'm trying to think of guys that would be high-end NFL players. This is, Justice Hayes is a guy as an upperclassman, but I think just when you look at the total tool set,
Isaac Brown to me is a guy. I know he just got hurt, but Isaac Brown, I think a year from now is an NFL back.
Yeah, he's gonna have to catch the ball better, but he could. Certainly the twitch is there and the production is ridiculous. I just think this guy with his size. Pete, you remember Matt Forte from Tulane?
Yeah, of course. Great receiving back, man.
Yeah, I see some of that here. This guy catches the ball with his hands, former punt returner, kind of the same size. Forte got bigger, but I think this guy will be bigger. So I'm blown away. And again, it's what we always talk about on the show: multi-sport, verified athletic testing. And then when you watch the football film, if a lot of running backs just run the ball, and that's fine. Frank Gore, you watch Frank Gore's high school film, all he did was run. But when guys are doing everything, returning punts, which takes some ball skills, playing defense, intercepting the ball, hitting guys, now you say, okay, we got a all-around football player here, and I think this is a diamond in the rough. Mestemaker too. You don't talk about a guy that's not, he's got tools also. It's not just the production and the system and everything else. And hey, this is a cool G5 story. Now he's got tools as well. So at the end of the day, the name that kind of keeps coming up with all these guys is Eric Morris, right? And Eric Morris, it's not just the system and having North Texas playing well, which is obviously important when you're evaluating a head coaching candidate. But this guy had Cam Ward, right? Also recruited John Mateer as well, I believe. Was all over Mateer when he was in high school, I believe. And certainly here's got two diamonds in the rough. So you wonder about this guy's ability to develop talent and whether he might be. I hate to have North Texas fans. We're talking about these guys going elsewhere. I don't want to do that because it's a fun team to watch, but there's certainly been a lot of interest, not just for the quarterback, not just for the running back, but also for the head coach.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of like another aspect with the portal and these two, like, will somebody hire their coach and they just follow? Who knows? We'll have to watch for that, but super fun player. He kind of came on my radar. He had 197 yards on 6 yards a carry and 4 touchdowns this week against Army, I think. So Navy, sorry. Broke 11 tackles.
Respect troops.
Yeah. Broke 11 tackles. So this is, I mean, he's definitely one of the more dynamic backs and like high ceiling guys in the country. Like you said, it feels like a lot of those guys have kind of underwhelmed. So I'd put him in the top 3 to 5 really right now. He's playing awesome.
D, I know you have to hop off here in just a second, but I wanted to get to the next guy real quick because I know you are very familiar with him, so you can talk about him for just a moment. And that's KJ Duff from Rutgers, a guy who was really a tight end out of high school, and I think most people just put in that box because he's such a big-bodied receiver, but has really been a phenomenal player the last, 2 seasons here at the wide receiver spot.
Yeah, you look at this game against Purdue. I mean, talk about getting downfield. What was his yards per catch in this game? I know, Blink, you probably have it on hand, but this was an insane performance. He's not just a contested catch, guys. You see him getting downfield here. So the story on Duff, I watched him in high school. He's from Long Island. He came down to Florida a lot to play 7-on-7 to do camps. Part of Team Raw Miami, which, I mean, that receiving core is absolutely absurd. They had Duff. Then later they had Donovan O, who's now starting, I believe, for Missouri. They had Malachi Toney, probably the best freshman in the country from Miami. Dallas Wilson, who just got hurt, but was one of the best freshmen in the country, 5-star player. These guys were all coming through that program. Calvin Russell, 5-star this year. So he played on a very high-profile 7-on-7 team despite being a Long Island kid, which plays more known for lacrosse. The knock on him, and the reason I think bigger schools didn't come after him, he ran a 5 flat or something at a combine, which I'm a big believer in verified testing, as everybody knows, but I think he just had a bad run. Plus, he's a taller guy. Well, not just plays faster, but if he timed him now, he'd probably time a lot faster too. I think it was a bad run. He's a taller kid. Sometimes those guys coordinate a little later. They get stronger. So I don't think speed's going to be an issue with him. He's not going to be Randy Moss at that height, like, one of those 6'4" guys who just runs by everybody. But I think he will be plenty fast enough to get downfield, like you saw in those clips. The body control's there, and I think that's why teams missed on him. And I think a lot of those teams are going to regret it. And if he's at Rutgers now, he's a Long Island kid. If he jumped in the portal, I think you're talking about potentially a 7-figure player and a guy that's going to get a lot of attention.
I'll tell you, if the same staff is there, what team I know is going to want him? Florida State. After the success with Deuce, after the success with Johnny, that's a big if, but we'll see. He's super fun. He's been one of the most productive receivers in the entire country this year. And D mentioned it. It's 40 yards per catch against Purdue is what he averaged.
Yeah, 6 catches, 241. So definitely, I mean, taking away the idea that he's not a big play guy. That's all he's shown. He's shown that every week, man. It seems like. So
yeah.
And you just mentioned, as D had to hop off there, so you and I will take us home here. We got a few more guys to talk about. Big body receivers, man. They're in style right now. And you mentioned Florida State. They've had success with some of those guys the last few years. Deuce Robinson, man, looks like he's working himself into being a pretty high potential draft pick here.
Yeah, he's been pretty unbelievable throughout this year, to be honest. Definitely exceeded my expectations. I was really high on him. He's like an A+++ off-field guy, like work ethic. Obviously, his dad played at the collegiate level. And so he knows what it takes. I think he's just kind of like been born to do this. And he's like very active in the community. So like he's checks every box with that. Great leader. But on the field, like I compared him to Johnny Wilson. He's worlds better than Johnny Wilson. Yeah. It's not even like in the same stratosphere, in my opinion. He runs a better route tree. I think he's a better separator off the line of scrimmage than Johnny is. Johnny just had like a bit of a jam that he could do. But like Deuce is like light on his feet, especially at this size. And granted, that's why this guy was a 5-star out of high school when he went to USC. But he's been awesome this year. 34 catches, 689 yards, 20 yards a catch, 4 touchdowns. He's had 3 games over 145 receiving yards. So yeah, the FSU legacy came home after 2 sort of underwhelming years at USC, but they had that stacked 2023 receiving class. So it was a little tough to break the rotation at times. But he's been phenomenal for FSU, and I think it's looking more and more likely that he will be in this year's NFL draft with every passing week.
I love how he attacks the football too, man, when it's in the air, because there's sometimes with these big guys that you know that they're going to get themselves in position to make the play just because they know how to use their body, but like he just really attacks it and does not give the defensive back, much of an opportunity to make a play on it.
Yeah, it's so different from a guy like Johnny, and Johnny always flashed that. And the bigger thing with Johnny was like the concentration drops, which Deuce doesn't really have. But even at the catch point, Deuce is just so natural going up to get the ball. It's like a second sense or something, or sixth sense, I guess. But he, like the catch he had the other day that you showed the picture of, I mean, he literally like reaches around the defender. I don't even know how he can see the ball, and it just lands right in his hand. His chemistry with Tommy, I mean, ever since getting on campus, those two have been like inseparable. So I've always been like a little, like especially optimistic, just because I think those two, regardless of how Tommy had performed passing wise, and he's been awesome for what he's been asked to do, I always figured, these two would probably have a pretty strong connection. I didn't think it would be this strong. The way he runs by these guys and gets open downfield, and then the way he can come down with these contested catches. 12 contested catches this year is third in the Power 4, trails KJ Duff is first, and his teammate Ian Strong is second. But he's won 12 out of his 18 contested targets. So like this is, I've said this before, but you say 50-50 ball, it's a 66-33 ball with Deuce Robinson. So he's been really, really, really impressive this year, and just probably the best player, maybe the best player overall on FSU, I would say. I don't think that's too crazy, but just a certain bright spot, and much more easy to praise after a win. And he's really bounced back after that Virginia final play. And that was a game where he was awesome all game, and then bobbles the ball for about 10 consecutive yards through the end zone. And so he's been awesome.
A positive week in Tallahassee, and hopefully for them step in the right direction, right? And Deuce has been a big part of that. But yeah, that the KJ Duff thing, man, that is an interesting one to watch. Potentially. So we'll wrap things up here with one last guy, Clay, someone that it's a position that over the last 5 years or so really has been undervalued, really, unless you're a freak of nature at this spot, and that's the off-ball linebacker spot. And we're going to talk about Austin Romaine here, Defensive Player of the Week for PFF. And it's with these off-ball linebackers, man, you're looking for guys who you don't have to take off the field, guys who can play the run, guys who can play the pass, and those third downs aren't going to be targeted by the offensive coordinator, so to speak. And you see the balance that he brings in his ability to stop the run and the pass.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who graded extremely well for PFF last year. He's the highest graded linebacker in the country, 90.8 grade. He had 54 total defensive stops, just like a negative play for the offense that he was responsible for. It's number 6 in the country. This year, he's got the number 8 grade, 82, and he's 3rd in the country in total stops. So just super, super productive in the run game especially. But like you said, not a liability in coverage either. He really doesn't get targeted a ton, which is not always the case for these linebackers. And he has yet to allow a career touchdown on 558 coverage snaps. So this is a guy who, coming out of the St. Louis area, and he's a true junior, 6'2", 245. Kansas State was his only Power 4 offer. He was a low 3-star, mostly Group of 5 and Ivy League offers, but Kansas State took a chance on him, and he's played really since day one. He was the first Kansas State true freshman linebacker to start since 2010. And this is another guy just super versatile in high school, slipped through the cracks, and now is balling at a Power 4 school that got in on him early.
Yeah, but you see these clips here. The first one, he was tracking back on a screen. The second one, he was stopping the run. This one, he's blitzing and, you know, affecting the quarterback. So you see the versatility. Here's another play here where he's essentially, you know, spying the quarterback and plugging the hole there. But to me, it's that you don't have to take him off the field, man. That's a very, very valuable thing in today's game.
Yeah. So as I said, in high school, played outfield for his baseball team. On his football team, played fullback, linebacker, obviously, and punter. He recorded 117 tackles and 7 sacks as a senior, 85 tackles, 19 for loss, and 8 sacks as a junior. And he rushed for 3,200 yards and 45 touchdowns over his high school career, and also punted, as I said. So once again, also played baseball. He's playing both sides of the ball. It's just it means I
Some
think it's
things
just
that
such
are
an easy way.
Yeah, it's an easy evaluation. And by the way, this is not the first Kansas State. We've talked about a couple Kansas State players. Wide receiver, his name is slipping my tongue right now.
Jace Brown.
Jace Brown. We were just talking about him a couple weeks ago. Another great evaluation from North Florida, right? And that's where he was from, right? He's from Tallahassee.
So around Tallahassee.
Around Tallahassee, sure. Right? So because I remember we were talking about how Florida State, that was a missed evaluation there. So you got to give this Kansas State staff credit for continuing to find these guys.
Yeah, and you know, you pay up to get a guy like Avery Johnson, who's a higher level recruit, and then you surround him with guys who probably didn't have to get paid very much to come to Kansas State out of high school. For a lot of these guys, that was their biggest offer. And I think Austin Romaine is probably the biggest hit they had, you know, being the only Power 4 offer and 2 straight years of really, honestly, elite production. I think he's probably would be in the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year race, if not for David Bailey. But I'm sure he's running away with that. Yeah. But this is one of the best players in the country, honestly, especially at linebacker. So I really wasn't super familiar with him. I've seen the grades, but I'm sure this is an NFL guy. I don't know what the ceiling is, but definitely an NFL guy.
You know, the linebacker spot, we'll see. It's the testing is always going to be so important. Yeah. What he ends up running, because again, they're not taking him off the field now at this level. The question is, do they think he can do that at the next level too? But certainly a guy that is right now one of the best in the country at this level, and that's really all that matters, right? So
yeah.
All right, Clay, we'll wrap things up here. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to Group Chat Sports. We will have you covered, man. That portal season it's approaching, man. We're doing a lot of speculating here, and it's going to be a wild 10 days. So we'll be ready for it here at Group Chat Sports. Clay, great stuff as always. Canes Inside fans, we will see you guys tomorrow. And again, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for tuning in today.